One day you understand that your home is not safe anymore. Kibbutz or Aner. It means candlelight. It is located in southern Israel near Sderot. The kibbutz was founded in 1957 by immigrants from Argentina. Oraner is beautiful not only because of the landscape, but also because of its art gallery and vineyard. The kibbutz is adorned with unique, beautiful murals called Mural Path. The community of Oraner has always been a big family. People there are fun and they used to love life. But on October 7th, people from Oraner lost their loved ones, homes, jobs. Many of them are losing a purpose in their lives. Will the candle continue to shine? Orly Nezer Ben Haim, a ceramic artist and an educator from Oraner. She kindly agreed to sit for an interview. Orly, what do you think is the most important help currently for your people?
Okay, so we're already we have experience in these extreme situations, not as extreme as we're going through now, but usually in times when, you know, our villages are under attack, parents and the administration takes care of the little kids. Everybody's, you know, feels for the little kids and try to make them happy, have all kinds of activities for them, and social workers, etc., etc. And what happens is that the young adults, the ones that are, I don't know, 14, 13, 14, 15, etc., they're usually left alone. And, you know, the parents take care of the little kids. And then you have all these young adults that are usually, you know, they just do whatever they want. And we have learned during time that this is a very vulnerable society, these young adults. Sometimes they just do nothing. And when, you know, youth are all together, very bored, sometimes problematic things happen. And they're not inclined to, you know, get therapy. They don't want to study. They don't want to go to schools. And at this time, for example, we're far away from our homes and our schools, and we have managed to organize, you know, schools. Now they are in Jerusalem. They used to be in Tiberias 2 weeks ago, and we did arrange for them to go to schools. But, you know, it's, think about it, somebody's 15, 16, suddenly they go to a new school, new teachers, new environment, their old friends are not there, so they're not so inclined to learning. And of course that that will be, you know, something that they will feel very strongly when they go to their final exams. You know, they've lost another year. You know, when youth are left alone, don't have too many activities, you never know what happens among them. You know, everybody, they are good kids, raised in good homes, but when they're not supervised, you know, things happen, and some lines are crossed, etc. So I believe that that this time we need to pay much more attention to our youth, not to lose them, you know, not to lose another generation.
It's interesting what you say, because nobody talks about it. We talk, of course, about hostages, about our army, our soldiers, about parents suffering, and about little kids. You're absolutely right. And what about young adults and teenagers? And I'm sure that many of them also lost their friends or relatives in this massacre.
Of course, my daughter, she's 18. She was at home on October 7th. She was at home with her boyfriend, and you know, they're exposed to social media that adults are not, you know, Telegram, etc. I'm not exposed to that. So from very early in the morning, they received messages, horrific messages, And then, you know, they have all these friends that terrorists have entered their villages and their homes. And my daughter got messages, can somebody can please come help me? I'm holding the door. I cannot hold the door anymore. They're almost in here. Or another friend wrote, whoa, there's smoke in here. I cannot breathe. And, you know, my kid got all these messages. So it's very, very damaging. And we are all connected. We are 12 small villages, and we're connected under one municipality. It's a rural municipality, and all the kids go to the same school. So my daughter is the one that she's 18, and my other daughter, she's 21. They lost a lot of peers, and they go from funeral to funeral, and then, you know, to after 30 days we go again to. So we have all these ceremonies. And I think it's very, very hard for the young adults to, you know, cope with all this loss. But, you know, they're not inclined to, you know, talk about it, go to therapy, etc. So we need to find other ways to help them, and to support them, and make sure that that they're healthy, you know, they're healthy in their minds. And also, you know, it's think about it, that you one day understand that your home is not safe anymore. How do you go back to such a home? And for instance, our school, it is not possible to go back to study in our school, not because, you know, we have bomb shelters everywhere, and we have sheltered ourselves insane, you know, but we never took into account such an attack, you know, that actually terrorists will enter our land, you know, in thousands. So how do you protect the kids from that? So it is not, even if we go back to our homes, which is not allowed, that now we are not allowed to go back.
Do they talk to you, your daughter, for example? Does she talk to you about her feelings?
Not so much. Yes, they talk about it, but I think I think they don't even understand the extreme of the happenings of whatever happened. And, you know, some of them I've lost I don't know, 5, 10 friends. And if it's not their friend that died, it's the mother of their friend that died, or the boyfriend of the friend that died. So there's so much death in their lives, and but not death from illness, you know, death in extreme circumstances. And also because they have their social media, they were exposed to brutal killing and rape, and they saw everything, and what happens to babies. They're very traumatized, and it's hard to reach out for them. Let me explain. For example, I work in a college of education in Jerusalem, and we have set up a special place for youth to come over and to have private lessons, to do recreational activities. They don't come. They don't want to, and they don't want to study. And from their perspective, they, as if they want to be left alone and do nothing, you know, and you know, as if that's the best thing a teenager can do, just be free with their time and do whatever. But we all know that bored teenagers, that can sometimes bring them to less healthier activities. So we really need to put this together, and to construct their everyday lives in ways that will appeal to them, that will include recreational activities, but also therapy, group therapy. When you're in a traumatic situation, if you don't want to go into a post-traumatic situation, it's very important as soon as possible to be active, first of all, not to be passive. It's very important to be active. And it's very important to speak to others that were there and have experienced the same issues, the same events, the same feelings, that to see that you're not alone and to be able to process these activities.
Do you think they are just bored because they have nothing to do, or it's just an apathy or like depressive feeling, like part of depression or anxiety, and they don't want to do anything, even if there is something to do, but they still say,
yeah, they don't even, it's hard to get them to do things. But if we have activities that they, for example, all the group from my kibbutz, if the group from my kibbutz are all doing it together, they would go. But if, for example, if you would say, okay, what about an after school activity? Who wants to go do, I don't know, pottery, ceramics? Who wants to go to do astronomy? Or they wouldn't go. Now, in regular days, they would go. Each one would go to what interests him or her. But in this situation, you know, they try not to add anything that it has, you know, to do something academic or something educational. Yeah. They're good kids and they are raised in wonderful homes, but it's always this thing that when youth are left alone and they might have ideas that are not so healthy, and you know, there's nobody to teach them better in a certain particular situation. I'm not saying that things are happening now. I'm talking about research that was conducted on all the it's not the first time that we are evacuated from our homes. This has happened before. It happens every 2 years or so. So the research was conducted, what happens to young adults in these situations that they're not supervised.
mm-hmm.
And it's really important to pay really close attention to these ones and to give them a good future.
Understand. Yeah. All these kids, most of them, they live in the same hotel. You said you are in Tiberias right now.
Now they live, all the kibbutz live together now they are in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm. Who lives in Tiberias right now?
No, so all of them used to live in Tiberias, but it became very, very hard over there. It's too far from where we work. And so 2 weeks ago, the community decided to move from Tiberias to Jerusalem. We're about 230 families, okay? And about 180 families are in Jerusalem, and the rest are all over. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's not a good for a community to be so separated, because you know, we're very worried about the future and how it's going to look like, because for years we were told that everything is fine, that we are safe, that the army will protect us, that there's a wall that will protect us. And this has collapsed. The strongest feeling we're feeling is that we were deserted and we were cheated, and that we were left for hours and nobody came to save us. We fought for our lives, and people are afraid to go back to, you know, to normal lives. And then what? I mean, for what?
And you don't have a picture of the future, where you're going to live, what will happen to your community, how to continue.
Exactly. How are we gonna, you know, what will our community look like? who is gonna come back, who's not gonna come back. Probably many families with little kids would not go back.
How community will survive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. For me, yeah, it's a major concern. That's why I'm talking to you, and that's why I'm volunteering for my community, because we need now to see a bigger picture. We need to, you know, we need to think about, okay, for what? For what are we gonna? Why are we together over there? I mean, there are other places which are safer. Why live in such an area? You know, Israel is so small, and still there's such a gap between, you know, when you live in a periphery like we did and when you live in the center. Not the same facilities, not the same education, not the same transportation, everything. So you need to have a bigger cause to live there. And we used to feel that we are doing something that is important. But we got such a slap in our face. So we need to find a bigger dream, and the bigger dream will be among ourselves. How we have to dictate what kind of a community we want to be, and a better one. And it's hard now that we're separated, and everybody's, you know, we're licking our wounds. Everybody, you know, each one takes this differently. Some are like, I don't care, I'm okay, my family is safe, I would like to go back to my couch and to my bedroom. But some people say, no, I'm not okay at all. It could be us, because there were trucks with terrorists that had maps of our village in their cars, and they were about to go to our village if they were not stopped. And
Orly, the kibbutzim which were attacked by Hamas, were they in like very close proximity to your kibbutz?
very, very close.
How close approximately?
Well, kibbutzim that were severely attacked are further away from the border than we are.
Oh, really?
Okay. The fact that our kibbutz was not attacked directly is by chance, and by a good work of our we have our group, our safety group, you know, we have civilians that are trained, that in when they're needed, they can protect the village. And our group was well trained, because the person who's responsible for them, he was very meticulous. And you know, in other places they were not so, you know. And also the villages, we didn't have enough armory. A lot of the rifles they were jammed, they didn't work. Our emergency group was okay, respectively. And we have a kibbutz near us. It's called Erez, Kibbutz Erez, and it's closer to the border than we are. And they were attacked, and they didn't have enough men and armory to support themselves. And our men from my village, from my community, went over there and fought with them. They brought them armory, they brought the weapons, and there was a fight over there at Kibbutz Erez, and they stopped them over there. We were very, very lucky, but we didn't know that we are lucky, because we were locked in our homes. We were in our safety room for hours. and we heard the not only the missiles, we heard the gunfights. We also live very close to the town called Sderot. We heard the gunfights, and we didn't know when it will reach our village.
انزل 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 روح روح انزل سيبني 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 وقف 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 وقف
And we had people from our community where it was Saturday morning. They were doing their training on bikes outdoors. They were shot, and really in a very bravery way they were saved, but a youngster 14 years old lost his eye, and him and his father and his friend, they were wounded, and now they're rehabilitated. And a young woman, she was at the party, and she was shot in 7 places in her body, and she's considered a medical miracle that she has survived this. And as I said, we're a cluster of villages that we all are part of one municipality, and we know each other. Kfar Aza is one of the villages that was in our municipality that was severe.
You know people from there?
Of course, we know. And they go to school with our kids, and we work together. And the head of our municipality was one of the first people I don't remember what time it was, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. We received a message that he's dead. And that was when we understood, okay, something real is happening here. This is not just, okay, some missiles, and okay, we go to the shelter, and in an hour it will be fine. It was a day, that it was a life-changing day. Yeah.
Orly, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Did you grow up in Israel?
Well, I was born actually in the United States. My parents were Israeli, and my dad went to study there, and they lived there for 11 years. I was born in 1968. And when I was about 4.5 years old, my parents decided to do Aliyah, to go back to Israel. I have 2 siblings. I'm in the middle. I have an older brother and a younger brother. So let's say since age 5, I grew up in Israel. At first I grew up in Haifa. It's a city in the north of Israel. I went to the army. Everybody goes to the army here in Israel. And when after doing my service, I lived as a student in Tel Aviv. And I got married, and we lived together 10 years in Tel Aviv.
What was your major in university?
I studied business and communication, and I worked in a television, in a national television broadcast. I was a researcher, but I was always artistic. I was always about art, and I always made art, and it was always, especially ceramics, was a major part in my life. Since I was a little kid, I would go to ceramic class. And wherever I would go, even when I was in the army, and for a while we were in a kibbutz in the north, and I asked, okay, is somebody doing here ceramics? And they would say, oh, this lady, she has a workshop. I would always reach out for clay and work on. So it's a major part of my life. And then my husband got a postdoc position in Cornell University in the Finger Lakes, upstate New York. So we moved for 3 years to Cornell, to Ithaca. And over there, I decided, okay, I'm only doing art. And I used to go to the clay studio, which was in the basement, and just do my stuff and work on my things. I used to sculpt figurative sculptures back then. And, other students would come to me, wow, can you teach us?
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I became a teacher. I was shocked, how, wow, America is, it gives you a lot of opportunities. In some ways, they're more open, they didn't ask what my credentials were. They just saw what I'm doing and said, we want to do that. Please teach us. It was really nice. So after 3 years, when we came back, I said, okay, only art. I'm done with all the other stuff that I'm doing and I don't really care about.
And you were teaching?
Yeah, I have my PhD, and my expertise is ceramic art, modern ceramic art in Israel, and I teach students for education. I teach them how to implement clay in their classes, to use clay to teach other stuff, to teach mathematics and biology and, I don't know, history through clay projects. I even wrote a book in Hebrew how to do that. And also I've written a historic book. It's going to be published in academic publishing, to be published. So, and also in the kibbutz, I teach the kids ceramics. Most of the kids in the kibbutz, since they were, I don't know, 6 until, I don't know, 12, they came to ceramic classes in my studio in the kibbutz.
How did it happen to you that you decided to move to kibbutz?
So when we were in the Finger Lakes in Cornell University, and my husband, he was doing his postdoc in plant genetics. I don't know, probably we got homesick, he got homesick, and his dad is a farmer. He had lands in the Negev, and he told him, look, son, I'm not getting younger. Why don't you come back and join me managing the farm? We were tempted. And when we came back, we could not go back to Tel Aviv or Haifa, where I grew up. And we were looking for a place that would be not too far from Tel Aviv and not too far from the land that his dad is cultivating. And that was that area. That's how we got to that area where we're at now. And of course, you fall in love with the place you live. Of course, first of all, you love your home, your specific home, and then you love the area, and you love the people you're with, your neighbors, and your kids. They grow, they have their friends, they're very close friends, and that becomes your home. That's your home. Yeah.
So the community is like a
Yes.
family.
Exactly. It's a family that you're happy to meet, you're happy to do things with. You take decisions together. You have to, when you take decisions, you have to think about the better and the good of everybody, and not just think about yourself. Yeah, it's interesting way of living. Yeah.
Can you imagine your life without the kibbutz?
Yeah, if you would ask somebody else, they would say, no, never. Of course I'm going back. I cannot live anywhere else. Specifically, if I want to be honest, you know, I have my parents are in another city in Haifa, and I lived for 10 years in Tel Aviv, and I have a lot of friends in Tel Aviv, and of course I love Tel Aviv, and I'm here almost 2 months, and it's, you know, it's nice. I get to see my friends. I get to see, there are a lot of, you know, coffee shops and restaurants, and but
In your heart.
I feel that I need to go back, but not, you know, I need to go back and make it a good place, you know, a special place. Even better than what it was. You know that Israel, this war started, and we were not at our best. There were a lot of conflicts in Israel. In the last 10 months, we were demonstrating every Saturday night.
ספר תורה! זה ספר תורה מקום בכותל! סליחה אדוני, אתה עושה משהו לא חוקי! אתה שוטר?
There are fights over the holy scrolls. The Reform rabbis call for help, but Israeli police don't intervene.
Hope is that if we go back, we find a way to work as a community to better our lives in all aspects, in the social aspect and even in the economic aspect, to find way as a community.
You mentioned that you are liberal Democrat. As far as I know, people who are like liberal Democrats and who live in kibbutzim, they advocate for living in peace with Arabs. Before October the 7th, what was your idea of the coexistence, Arabs and Israeli people? Did you believe in peace?
Well, you know that many kibbutz members that were murdered and kidnapped are leftists that worked very hard for the coexistence. Many of them were in groups that, you know, that were fighting for the rights of the Palestinians. And in fact, my neighbor's father, he's 77, and he's now still a hostage. And he was in those groups of people that would wait in the border, wait for Palestinians that need to go to hospitals in Israel and drive them to the hospital and then back.
My name is Lior Perry. Early Saturday morning, my father, my 79-year-old father, was abducted from his house. All his life, my father was a peace activist. He took part in an Israeli organization called the Road to Recovery. They were taking sick people from Gaza Strip, where he's being held now, to Israeli hospital to get a medical care. Please, bring my father, Chaim Perry, back home.
So yes, we were for coexistence. We didn't know. I mean, personally, I wasn't sure what's the best solution, if it's two states or other solution. But of course, I was very sensitive to the fact that you know, they have no autonomy to decide on their lives and on their futures. And I was considered a leftist. And I must say that when October 7th has happened, my older daughter said to me, you know, Hamas has won because he changed us. Because every time there was this, you know, these attacks, operations, I would say, I don't want this to happen. I don't want anybody to be killed. I don't want my Israeli soldiers to be killed for me. And of course, I don't want them to bomb Palestinian houses, etc. But after October 7, I feel I want to live, and I feel that they invaded our homes in the thousands. They invaded our homes. They killed. They tortured. I don't feel as much as before that it's my responsibility. I used to feel that it's my responsibility what's happening to the Gazan people. No, it's Hamas's responsibility. Hamas should, do what's good for his people. It's not my responsibility anymore. I need my kids to be safe. If you care so much about your people, why did you keep them in poverty? Hamas received billions of dollars, and he didn't use it for their people. He used it for guns, for armory, for tunnels. If anybody would say anything against Hamas, they would be killed. They're very, very conservative. And if, there are people who, some people think, okay, two-state solution is a good solution. And some people say, no, let's just let them be citizens of Israel.
What do you think about it?
I'm concerned because, we have a problem now. As I said, I'm democratic and liberal, but we have a third of our society who's not liberal. Now, Palestinians are not liberal. Yeah, so let's say now about 25, 26, almost 30% of our Israeli population are conservative. But Palestinian society, they're conservative. And let's say they all become Israeli citizens. That means that 40-something, almost 50% of the Israeli population will be conservative. That means that, and of course, conservative population, this is how it is in Israel. They have more kids. That means that Israel will become more and more conservative and less democratic in the next decades. So even though I was for, I thought, they deserve to get all the rights that we as Israelis receive and all the benefits, etc. What kind of Israel would this be? I mean, extremist conservative, and not only that, then we have extreme Jews and extreme Muslims. And with all this jihad, with jihad, there's no compromise. And I'm not saying that all Muslims are like that. Not all Muslims are for jihad. Not at all. But still, it's threatening. And about two states for two nations, I don't know if you're familiar with the map of Israel, but everybody should look at the map and see what happens if Judea and Samaria, what we call the occupied territories, what if there's Hamas or ISIS and they're on the hills? Judea and Samaria are the hilly part of Israel. And then there is the coast.
Yes.
Everybody talking about should look at the maps. That means that we have on the mountains artillery to Tel Aviv. So yes, I was and I still am for, let's say a two-state solution. But they cannot have guns. Because if we cannot have another Iranian hub with the best view on our major cities. And honestly, when you saw the brutality, you know, when they entered Israel, they did things just for fun. For example, in one of the kibbutzim, they entered in a kibbutz, there is a dining room, a collective dining room. Nobody was there. They destroyed it and put it on fire. They went to an art gallery in Kibbutz Be'eri, burned all the arts in there. Why? I mean,
Just to ruin everything.
they weren't, but you know, I think the shock was the hate. I never really understood how much they hate us. If they hate us so much, how can we trust them? Why should we trust them?
Do you think it's the land or because of something else?
It's about pride. I know that the Arab society lost their pride in 1948. They lost their homes and their pride. And they're trying to reconstruct their pride again. In their schools, you have to see their curriculum. Hate for Israel. They're educated from day one to hate Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
And to admire the mortars who have bombed Israel in suicide bombing. Their leadership is all about jihad, about Muslim fighting for religion and the hate for Israel. And that's it. They have no other story to tell. No other story to tell.
Orly, you said that Israel took their pride in 1948, but before 1948, it was 1947, and Arabs, they did terrible things to Jewish people. And in 1938, for example, 38, it was even before the Second World War, in Tiberias, it was a terrible massacre.
Yes.
And how they behaved, Arabs, how they killed Jewish people and families. They burned, they raped, they killed children. They did absolutely the same thing they did on October the 7th. So it happened before, and it was as violent as it is now. Not as many people were killed, like now, different scale, but still, maybe it's not just 1948 pride, maybe it goes deeper.
The difference between the Jewish society in what was called then Palestine and the Arab society was that the Jewish society was very well organized. We had our organizations, and in a way, although we were all occupied by the British, okay, it was the British mandate that occupied Palestine, and Jews and Muslims were under that occupation. But we had, the Jews had all these organization of help and of even they governed the working people, etc. We had all these Jewish organizations, but the Arab society, they were not organized because Palestine was very, very poor land in the times of the Turks. The Turks took everything they could take from Palestine and left it a very, very poor region. They were here for hundreds of years. And the Palestinians that were here in Palestine, they were, how do you say, vassals. They didn't have their own lands. They were working the lands of rich people who didn't live in Palestine, who lived in Lebanon, lived in Syria, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lands were not theirs. And for example, when the Jewish people would buy land of Arabs who owned land. The Arabs would sell them gladly because the Jews would pay a high price. And they lived, as I said, in Lebanon, and they were aristocracy who didn't live in Palestine. What happened that the poor farmers, Palestinian farmers, it was not their land. And when the land was sold to Jewish people, they had to leave their land and find other places. But when what we call independence war and what they call the Nakba has happened, in 1948, we were organized and they were not. And they were told by their leaders to leave their villages and until they're safe, etc. And they left. And when the war ended, Israel did not let them go back. Now, was it a mistake? I think it was. And there are different reasons why they were not allowed to go back to their homes. And that was in 1948. It was 75 years ago. And for 75, they're waiting with their keys to go back and not thinking about their present and about their future and how to better their future. So would you do that? Would you stop your life and just wait and live on welfare and wait for the minute that Israel will be destroyed and you would be able to go back? I don't think I would. And I'm not saying that I'm not proud of what has happened. I think they were supposed to, we were supposed to let them go back to their homes. Although, immigrants lose their homes in all over the world. Jewish people from Iraq and from Morocco and from Europe, they lost their homes.
They built their lives.
But it went in a very bad direction. And I'm not saying that we don't have some part of it, but it's not all the blame on us. It's not. They never, from day one, they never had a good leadership.
I have a question to you. We see that the crowds of Gazan people celebrating massacre, violence, and same thing we see on the West Bank. As far as I know, the children, since they were born, they were fed with hatred to Israel. But since 2005, they didn't see Israeli people. So they lived behind the wall, taking all the information about Israel from TV, which led them to dehumanize Jewish people. Jewish people in Israel, they didn't see Palestinians also from 2005. And maybe we know nothing about them either. You lived very close to these people. Do you have an impression about them? Do you think that there are people in Gaza who would like to live in peace with Israel?
So first of all, for listeners who are not familiar with the situation and they hear about apartheid, etc., you must know that Israel has a 15%, if I'm not, maybe between 15 to 20% of Muslims, and they are Israelis, and they get all the facilities as Israelis. Of course, there are times of tension, and of course, you can say that maybe their villages are not as well taken care of as some Jews. Of course, this conflict with the Palestinian always affects our relationship with the Arab citizens, that they're Muslims and they're citizens, and they by law get all the benefits that Jews get. Okay, so people need to understand when talking about apartheid, this is ridiculous. And then we have the Palestinians of 1967. Okay, the Palestinians that in 1967 we have occupied their refugee camps. and they, for many years they're under military governance. Okay. So about them, of course, yes, for many years, what we call left in Israel is considered a political point of view, a national political point of view, and not so much an economic point of view. So the leftists in Israel try to reach out and find ways to collaborate and meet Palestinians, offering their hands for peace and for collaborations. And we have organizations of families that lost their kids from both sides, Jewish families from Israel that lost their siblings and fathers and etc. They lost kins in this conflict, and there are Palestinians who lost their kins in this conflict, and they work together. And in the Memorial Day, they do a memorial ceremony together. And of course, many Israelis opposed to that. They don't like it. But there are many groups in Israel, and they're still working on that. I just received an email it's called Rabbinites for Human Rights, and they work in the West Bank to help Palestinians in the West Bank work their fields. Sometimes right-wing extremists avoid them from going to their olive trees and picking their fruits, and sometimes it's the army. Now it's the army because there's a lot of tension. So there are many Jewish, even religious Jewish, that are trying to reach out and help and communicate and advocate, and lawyers, etc. So of course there are people, Palestinians, who have no interest in the conflict and just want to live in peace. I must say that the October 7 has shaken me a little bit, because as I said before, I didn't imagine the amount of hate that that will make them do such things. The cruelty. I don't know where it came from, all this cruelty. But of course, we understand that people want to live and they want to prosper, and every mother wants their kids to, prosper in life, and not everybody wants to kill, of course. Yeah.
So you think that there are people like that in Gaza who want this?
Yeah, of course.
This is pretty honest message. You're very open. Thank you very much for that. I know that so many people in Israel, they have absolutely different opinions about what's going on. However, and many of them even hate each other, but still, even they think differently, they think about the same thing. All of them want peace in Israel. Leftists in America, they do not even care about what happened in Israel and who started first.
Dr. Kornbluth, yes. At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes,
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, targeted at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric.
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Do you have a message as a liberal Democrat to liberal Democrats on the other side? Do you have a message for these people? What would you say to them?
I say that I was really shocked by this because, as I said, I consider myself leftist, and whenever I would go abroad, and I go a lot to Europe, and people talk to me about the situation, and I would always say, yeah, I don't like the situation with the Palestinians, and I wish we would find a solution. But what does that have to do with October 7? I'm shocked. I mean, October 7 was an event on its own. It's separated. It was a massacre, a atrocity. You know, I would expect these people, first of all, to address what has happened on that day. And if you are a woman, the rape, the gang rape. I don't want to describe what happened to women over there because I don't know who's listening. But the cruelty was unimaginable. And I cannot understand how women don't condemn what was done to women only because they're Israeli or even Jewish. I don't know what the problem is. First of all, condemn what happened on October 7th. Then, if you want to talk about the occupation, about the daily lives of Palestinians, let's do it. But you have to separate. There's no excuse for saying that we had it coming, that we deserved it. Babies did not deserve to be cooked in a microwave. Believe me. So please, I think that something went wrong with the leftists in the United States. And if you hate Jews just because, I don't know why you're anti-Semitic, okay, keep this aside for a second. because I don't know how to explain what your opinion on what happened on October 7th. And think about what really happened to women and kids and address that. After you do that, if now we want to talk about the measures of what our army is doing in Gaza, please understand that Israel would not stop until our lives are safe.
Yes.
And the terrorists are in the cities, under mosques, under homes. That's where the tunnels are, and that's where they come out from and fire at us. So if you care about Palestinians, make sure their Hamas is destroyed, because Hamas is ruining their lives, Make sure Hamas is destroyed. And then, please, by all means, donate your money to build up Gaza as a better place. I welcome this. But you have to do the separations between issues. Please do that. If we want to live in peace, we have to destroy Hamas. And if Hamas has its operation rooms under houses, we have to knock down houses. And we tell the people, please, you're not safe here. Go down south. Go down south. You're not safe here. And Hamas would shoot any Palestinian who wants to go south to save themselves. They would shoot them. So who is it to blame? Please, who is this to blame? I'm sorry, but you would do exactly the same. What the United States has done after 9/11, what they did to Afghanistan and Iraq is they ruined these countries, what the United States has done. And the unfortunate people who died in 9/11, if you think about the percentage of the people from the American population, the thousands that died in 9/11, the percentage that died in October 7 are 10 times more. 10 times more, because we're less people, we're fewer people in Israel. So think about what you would do if it happened to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.